Here's something that'll squeeze your mind, Ben. During the last 18 months of Woodrow Wilson's presidency, his wife was secretly running the country while he lay partially paralyzed from a stroke. And that's just one of the wild twists in the story of a president who completely transformed America.
You know what's fascinating about that period, Pappy? His wife, Edith, was essentially making major decisions about what information even reached the president's desk. It was like having an unelected shadow president.
And this was happening right when Wilson was trying to convince America to join his grand vision for world peace through the League of Nations. I mean, here's a guy who went from being a university president to reshaping the entire global order.
Well, that's quite a journey from Princeton's presidency to trying to prevent future world wars. How did he manage such a dramatic transformation?
It's interesting because he started with this purely domestic agenda called the New Freedom. He wanted to break up monopolies, reform banking, protect workers, but then World War I completely changed everything. Though, honestly, his domestic achievements were pretty revolutionary on their own.
Like the Federal Reserve System. It's wild to think that before 1913, America didn't even have a central bank.
Oh man, the Federal Reserve was huge. Before that, we had these periodic financial panics that would devastate the economy. Wilson basically created the entire framework for modern monetary policy. And then there's the federal income tax. Can you imagine America without it?
Right. And he pushed through the Clayton Antitrust Act and created the Federal Trade Commission, too. He was really trying to rein in immense business power.
And don't forget about workers' rights. The 8-hour workday for railroad workers, that was Wilson. He tried to ban child labor too, though the Supreme Court shut that down. But then Germany started sinking American ships, and suddenly domestic reform took a backseat to war.
The shift in his foreign policy is pretty remarkable. He goes from neutral in thought and action to making the world safe for democracy in just a few years.
Well, the sinking of the Lusitania with 128 Americans on board forced his hand. But what's fascinating is how he tried to use America's entry into the war to completely reshape international relations. His 14 points were basically a blueprint for world peace.
Though that vision for the League of Nations ended up breaking him, literally, he had that massive stroke while campaigning for it.
Yeah, and here's where things get really complicated. While he's pushing for this idealistic vision of global cooperation, at home he's actively segregating federal offices and praising Birth of a Nation, that horrifically racist film that glorified the KKK.
The contrast between his international idealism and domestic racism is pretty striking. It really shows how progress isn't straightforward.
Exactly. And you know what's really interesting? Many of his reforms are still shaping our lives today. Every time the Fed adjusts interest rates, that's Wilson's legacy. Every time we pay income tax or see the FTC going after unfair business practices, that's all Wilson's.
So in some ways, he created the framework for modern American government, even though some of his views were deeply problematic.
And that's what makes him such a fascinating figure to study. He was this intellectual idealist who believed in the power of moral leadership, but he had these massive blind spots that caused real harm. It's like he could envision world peace, but couldn't see the injustice right in front of him.
That complexity really speaks to our current moment. We're still dealing with many of the same tensions between progress and prejudice.
That's exactly right. Wilson's presidency raises questions we haven't fully answered yet about the role of government in the economy about America's place in the world, about how to balance idealism with political reality. His legacy is both inspiring and troubling, and maybe that's what makes it so relevant today.
Well, Pappy, it certainly gives us a lot to think about when we consider how change happens, both the progress and the setbacks.
And maybe that's the real lesson here, Ben, that transformative change is possible, but it's never perfect or straightforward. Wilson's presidency changed America forever, for better and worse, and we're still living with the consequences of both.